Okay, do I do. I hear that music. It's time once again for A Moment with Bob, brought to you by your friends at Offshore Drilling. Tonight's moment entitled The Frog and the Scorpion. Hey, Mike, the origin of the story of the frog and the scorpion might go back to the ancient Sanskrit traditions collected in the Panchatantra. But I first heard the tale while watching a bootleg copy of the 1955 Orson Welles film, Mr. Arkadin, 40 years ago. The Frog and the Scorpion. A frog and a scorpion meet on the bank of a stream, and the scorpion asks the frog to carry him across on its back. The frog asks, "How do I know you won't sting me?" The scorpion says, "Because if I do, I will drown too." The frog is satisfied, and they set out. Halfway across, the frog feels a terrible pain. The scorpion has stung him. "Why did you sting me?" gasped the frog. "Now we'll both die." "I know," replied the scorpion, "but I cannot help myself. It is my nature." A scorpion's job, other than to make baby scorpions, is to sting, kill, and eat its prey. If there had been another frog hanging around, it might have asked the well-intentioned, trusting frog, "What part of kill, sting, and eat don't you understand?" But it was just the two of them, the frog and the scorpion, down by the stream, and the frog agreed with the scorpion's irrefutable logic. Why would it cause its own demise? Believing the words of a scorpion, but ignoring the nature of a scorpion, they set off to their mutual doom. Unlike the fables attributed to Aesop, there is no moral for the listener to get. It is a very simple story illustrating one of the many facets of the human condition that we, for the most part, have disregarded, repressed, or forgotten for centuries. Never negotiate with a scorpion. Regardless of what they may say, their agenda has nothing to do with your best interests. Oh, did I say scorpions? Damn, I meant to say Republicans. But then I reflected on all the damage the Democrats have done since the Bush-Cheney regime blasted its way into the Oval Office. For 8 years, they either caved in or collaborated with those murderous thugs. And then when a Democrat achieved the highest office in the land, the hope we could believe in turned into the Bush-Cheney regime 2.0. So yeah, instead of scorpions, substitute almost anybody who holds an elected office and meets in our nation's capital to decide how best to screw the rest of us into the ground. What's the age-old question? Nature or nurture? The innate corrupt nature of most of our current crop of politicians is carefully nurtured by the lobbyists, bagmen of the corporatocracy. So the corruption can take bloom, very similar to the way an algae bloom will choke off all the existing life in a pond or lake. An excellent deal for the algae, but not so much fun for the fish. Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Sidney Schanberg once said, quote, "We Americans are the ultimate innocents. We are forever despairing or desperate to believe that this time the government is telling the truth," end quote. Which sounds so much better than starting off, "We Americans are the ultimate innocent frogs." And the truth is, we're not so innocent. The frog in the story was just performing a good deed. There wasn't going to be any sort of payoff when he and the scorpion reached the other side of the stream. We, on the other hand, are lured into the water because we can see the glittering array of treasures on the other shore we can buy with our labor. We are cooperating with poisonous insects. The sweet, seductive voices in our heads are coming straight from the scorpion elite of the dominant culture. We've known since Rachel Carson published Silent Spring in 1962 that the use of pesticides by agribusiness was killing not only animals and birds, but humans. Using the publication date of Silent Spring as an historical marker, we've known for over 50 years that the way we grew our food was lethal. The influence of Silent Spring led to the banning of DDT in 1972. It took 10 years to finally stop using a verifiably toxic chemical that poisoned our environment. So what's happened over the last 40 years? Did agribusiness learn to grow our food without poisoning the air, the water, or the land? Or did they double down on wrecking our biosphere? Genetically engineered crops were supposed to require less pesticides and herbicides. Charles Benbrook, Ph.D., chief scientist for the Organic Center, in his study, Impacts of Genetically Engineered Crops on Pesticide Use, the first 13 years, found farmers applied 318 million more pounds of pesticides over the last 13 years as a result of planting genetically engineered seeds. Genetically engineered crop acres required over 26% more pounds of pesticides per acre than acres planted to non-genetically engineered crops. I'm not an expert in the field, but off the top of my head, that doesn't sound so good. The dominant culture's primary approach to agriculture is to make money, not food. The dominant culture's approach to anything is to make money. And whatever the hell happens next is irrelevant. We are cooperating with our worst enemy when we buy corporate food from our local megamart and with every bite of a Big Mac. Not only do we have to eat their garbage, but the dominant culture entices us with toys to buy with our wage slave money. Whether it's a toxic television or a poisonous PC, we just gotta have the newest iPod, iTouch, iMac, iPad, or iPhone. But do we have the faintest goddamn idea they're made with toxic chemicals and metals? Third world countries have become our digital dumping grounds. Hundreds of millions of tons of it each year pollute the land and water of impoverished people living amidst our electronic garbage. Do we even notice the scorpion on our back as we frog kick across the water toward playland? And when we eventually feel the fatal sting, we'll turn and see the dominant culture sinking with us. We could ask, why? Everything you've done is killing us all. And the scorpion, who in my movie looks a lot like Dick Cheney, the scorpion replies, I couldn't help it. It's my nature. And what part of capitalism don't you understand? Want to know what dissonance is? Our 7-year-old big-ass TV is starting to wheeze its way toward darkness. It can't be repaired. It can only be replaced. So, we've been looking at new TVs. There's a 60-inch LED model that's within our price range that looks absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to get it home and watch the Blu-ray edition of Mr. Arkadin. You see, there's this frog and scorpion down by the riverbank. Regards, Bob. Another Moment with Bob, brought to you by your friends at Offshore Drilling.